Hello, friends. I hope this finds you well. And so a couple things. Um, Last night I was meditating, praying with an ascended master, and was really overcome with how heartbreaking everything that's happening in Russia and well, really happening in Ukraine. But the invasion from Russia into Ukraine is like just how heartbreaking it is, and how many people are losing their lives and just their everything because of a person who decided, I want to rule all the things. And I was having this conversation, or as energetically as a conversation happens, and was really kind of contemplating and pondering why or if my work even matters. Like, what does it matter right now with everything else going on? And I really received this message that was essentially, your work is incredibly important, because if we all were living as authentically as possible, this would not be happening. And what that means, and I see just this whole image unfolding, is that when we live in a conditioned state, we're not living authentically to ourselves. And so a lot of the things we do, or things that we think, or beliefs we take on, are ones that are not actually innately programmed or who we actually are. They're not our truest self. They're not our authenticity. They have been given or witnessed or programmed into us through others, through society, that says this is how you should be, this is how you're supposed to be, this is how, like, we're meant to go through life. You're only important if XYZ, you only matter if XYZ. And so we take all these things on, and depending on the environment you grew up on, either these conditioned beliefs and thoughts and witnessed patterns were amplified and reinforced, or they were given lots of space and they weren't as ingrained as, say, they would have been had they been reinforced by, say, your parents or your social circle, or just the society you lived in, and what they valued and what they said mattered, or was valuable or was worthy. And when we're able to do the deconditioning work, because deconditioning is not a simple process and takes time. It's not an overnight process. Deconditioning from all of these beliefs we've taken on takes time. It can be a years process. Within human design, they say you're deconditioning. You don't really tend to live fully to your design for 7 years. That it takes that long for us to decondition, and then to understand, to learn, to know, to live, to embody our own design. Because human design, our chart, our whatever, is not just, this is how you make decisions, or this is how you interact with the world. It's layers upon layers upon layers of who you are, how you show up, your traits, your fears, your emotions, all of these different things that we can't just like put on in one day or one night. It takes years and years for us to not only be able to see that these things are truly us, because we have to decondition sometimes first in order to then be able to see, oh, that is me. Oh, that does feel really resonant. Oh, that does feel better than XYZ. And so we have to go through that in order to then step into who we are, because it's when we step into that, we become the healthiest version of ourselves. We live more in satisfaction and success and surprise and delight and peace than we do in frustration, anger, bitterness, and disappointment. And you can see how if we live a life predominantly through frustration, through feeling uninspired, through feeling irritated or angry, through feeling bitter and resentful, or feeling disappointed and deflated, that we're going to make very different choices and have very different beliefs if that's predominantly our experience in the world. And all of those things that I just said are what's considered our not self theme within human design, where the satisfaction, the success, all of that, that's considered our signature within human design. And we're not meant to live a life predominantly through our not self theme, through frustration, through bitterness, through disappointment. Those are all meant to be experienced here and there to help us course correct on our path. They're not there to be our normal. Our normal should be more, or is meant to be more, on the success and the peace and the satisfaction side of things than the other. And so it's learning these things. It's a being able to decondition from everything that maybe we even know to be true, to having the courage to say, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a different experience. I didn't come here for this to be my experience. So there's got to be a different explanation. And there is. And it's through deconditioning that we have a healthy ego, because we're all meant to have ego, that healthy ego versus unhealthy ego, right? We all stand in our power, not trying to rip and strip down power from others so that we can hoard it. We're able to stand in our presence and in our knowing and be able to allow others to do the same, and at the same time support them in doing that. It's knowing that there's enough for all of us and that we don't have to take from others in order to have what we're meant to have. It's trusting and knowing that when we live in alignment with who we are, all of the resources, all of the opportunities, all of the things will naturally find their way to us, and that we don't have to go out and figure it out or take it or force it or push it to happen. That it will naturally happen if we allow ourselves to be who we truly are. And the thing that I think is the biggest, one of the biggest, I guess, is that when we give ourselves permission and we live in alignment with who we are, the ripple effect is unknowable, because you're now giving permission and licensing to those around you, whether you know them or not, for them to be able to be authentically themselves. You taking the stand and saying, this is who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for who I am, because this is who I'm meant to be. And I'm sorry if that triggers you and that brings things up for you, but also you're welcome, because now you get to see where to do the work, where to go next. And so allowing ourselves, because that ripple effect, the ripple effect of authenticity, of permission to be who you are, is going to change the world way more, or not way more, in a more positive way than giving yourself permission and licensing to go deep into your not self theme, whether it's frustration, it's bitterness, it's whatever, because it's in that ripple effect that you're then again giving permission, and kind of like almost like you're inflicting, like you're like giving them this virus or this disease to say, here, you do this too. because when we're in that state, we like to collect others to be there with us. And that state is what allows us and helps us to lead to things like what we're currently going through, which war, and things that are not helpful to all of us. Through a human design lens, and just really like any astrological, any kind of lens that you approach this from, we're moving into a new era. And from a human design perspective, this new era, this new karmic era starts in 2027, or karmic cycle in 2027. So we're in a transition period. And this new karmic cycle we're going towards is all about abundance. It's all about co-creation. It's all about going with the flow and believing and knowing and trusting that there's enough for all of us, and saying like, yes, I can have some, you can have some, we all get to have some, and we all get to co-create our own experience here. And we all get to do the work, and we all get to do all the things, and we get to experience it all together. And so you can see this kind of push-pull that we're going through in these years to get fully integrated, so that in 2027, we're fully there and we don't start the transition period then. We then get to be fully immersed in that new era then. And side note, all of the kids, all of the new beings that come through 2027 and beyond will actually have 11 centers and not 9, where the rest of us have 9. And we unfortunately don't just magically get the other 2 come in your hands. We don't get them. We're here to be 9-centered beings, and then they will be the 11-centered beings. But anyway, all that to say, if we can all do our own deconditioning work, the world really does become a much more peaceful, successful, satisfied, and delighted world. But we have to take and do the work. And it's work. It's not easy stuff. Reprogramming, if we go into neuroscience and reprogramming our neurotransmitters, they can be programmed into a limiting belief through trauma like this. Unprogramming or reprogramming it back to something that is uplifting can take weeks, months, even years, depending on how ingrained that pathway became. So it's crucial to have support on this process and on this journey, because it's not easy. It can be easy to become disheartened, because you're like, oh, I've been doing it. Why hasn't it changed yet? And if any of you do tarot, I see like the wheel card, where it's just, we keep upcycling and we have to keep going through all of these different patterns so that we truly can reprogram them in all of the ways. Because you maybe have years programmed a certain way. It's going to take longer than a day to reprogram it a different way. So it's giving yourself grace. It's giving yourself understanding. It's giving yourself love as you go through this process. And it's finding like-minded people to go through it with, because they're the ones that you can go to and say, oh my gosh, this is happening again, but I have conscious awareness of it. And isn't that amazing? Let me celebrate that. Here I find myself in this. Look at this magical thing that just happened. That, or even somebody who can say, oh, isn't that interesting? As you were talking about this thing you're going through, I see this, this, and this. That's how my brain works. I'm like, oh, well, it sounds like you're frustrated. So likely that means that you're out of alignment. So is this thing that you're talking about actually a no? And you don't actually want to do it. You feel like you should do it, or you're supposed to do it, or you feel obligated. But like your soul doesn't really want to do it. Because if that's the case, well, then it's a no. And you're not helping anybody by saying yes to it, because the energy you're going to bring to that no is actually depletion, exhaustion, frustration, dullness, feeling uninspired, which is not helpful. It actually pulls more things from others than it does to give anything to them. Whereas when you live in the yes, you end up giving sparkly, uplifting energy to all of those around you. And that's really more specifically to a generator or manifesting generator, but really kind of covers all of us in a certain way as well. So I want to end this by reading this card that I pulled this morning, because there was a couple lines in it that just really felt like they hit, and I want to share it. So this is from Chip Richard's book, The Secret Language of Animals Oracle Cards. It's one of my faves. Highly recommend if they are larger cards, which makes it a little bit difficult to shuffle. But this one has really, it's my go-to. So the card that came up was Snow Leopard. It's number 13. And the message is, when Snow Leopard moves into your world, she brings a sense of quiet belief and purity of motion. Patient and deeply sensitive, Snow Leopard teaches us the art of agility, balancing stillness and observation with dynamic action, informed by the silent mystery of our intuition. Snow Leopard asks you to look beyond the surface to the spiritual teachings and gifts in your surroundings and experience. Snow Leopard says it's okay to walk your own path and to find comfort and serenity in your own company. Seek quiet solitude, and in that solitude, you will regenerate your being and heighten your connection to your own sense of direction. Tread quietly on the path that calls, not to impress others, but simply because it feels right to you. Snow Leopard calls you to walk your path with a vision that sees through shadow and darkness to the pure possibility beyond. There are times to be outwardly expressive of your gifts, and there are times to quietly harvest your energy and keenly observe the world around you, so that when you act, you do so with great speed and agility. Take time to get in touch with your own whispered guidance and inner truth. In the mystery of Snow Leopard, one moment the way may appear blocked, but in the next quiet breath, a doorway opens where once there was none. Be patient and ever present to the subtle signs of the moment. Smile deeply and be ready to leap when the moment calls. There is magic and mystery all around you. So with that, I wish you the best day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this. And I'm sending you all my love. Bye, guys.